Breath of the Wild casually walked so that Elden Ring could run full sprint off a cliff's edge because nobody has ever been able to figure out how fall damage works in this game. Jokes aside, it's impossible for any adventure game to not have some level of inspiration from Zelda. Zelda as a franchise is firmly ingrained into the DNA of the entire medium. Even the very notion of non-linear gameplay was first pioneered by The Legend of Zelda on the NES. Let it be known that any comparisons drawn between Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom are all positive comparisons. These three games have redefined the open world genre and challenged the old outdated philosophy of games that came before. I know in an interview, Hidetaka Miyazaki voiced discomfort at being compared to Shigeru Miyamoto and Eiji Aonuma, two titans of the industry whose games Miyazaki grew up with. However, I, and many other people, believe the comparison is apt. FromSoft hasn't been around nearly as long as Nintendo, nor have they been nearly as influential. But I believe FromSoft still has room to grow and have yet to perfect their own formula. Yet, I can't deny the amount of effort that goes into their games. Elden Ring would likely not exist without Breath of the Wild. However, the marriage between Zelda's open-ended exploration and Dark Souls' nitty-gritty difficulty and player customizability were a match made in heaven. FromSoft's patented opaque storytelling, while more disappointing in Elden Ring than in the games that came before, fits better here than it did in the recent Zelda titles. I ended the last video with the statement that Elden Ring is a bit of a dark mirror version of Zelda. Zelda often flirts with darkness, but does it in a more macabre, twisted yet family-friendly way. Elden Ring often flirts with golden light and hope, but all of it is a perversion of grace and justice. There is nothing benevolent about any of the gods or their offspring, and in the Shadow of the Erdtree we can discover for ourselves that the outer gods abandoned the lands between long ago, long before America's divine ascension. For untold eons it has been the work of the Elden Beast and Metter, Mother of Fingers, to keep up the charade, keep hope and grace alive, so that they may remain unchallenged. Elden Ring has a complicated mythos, and I shall summarize it to the best of my ability. Long ago, Metter, Mother of Fingers, and daughter of the outer god called the Greater Will, crashed into the lands between. At some point, another envoy of the Greater Will, the Elden Beast, also crashed into the lands. Metter gave birth to all the finger creatures, including the two fingers, and they've been controlling everything ever since and continue to do so after the game if you choose one of the Elden Lord endings. Marika was born in a shaman village and was flayed and tortured by the Horn Scent along with the rest of her people. Then, through some sort of seduction and betrayal, Marika communed with the fingers and was chosen to be a god. She sacrificed that which made her human to become a god. She was given a shadow named Malekith and selected a warrior Godfrey to become her king consort. Together, they destroyed all of Marika's rivals, sealed away destined death, and launched an endless holy crusade against the Horn Scent. If my interpretation is correct, then one of the aforementioned human pieces that Marika sacrificed became Radagon. He became champion of Marika's Golden Order and conquered Queen Rennala in more ways than one. Radagon and Rennala had 3 kids, Marika and Godfrey had 3 kids, and possibly more. Verdict is still out on who fathered these two. Things were as good as they get for these settings until Marika started doing some digging, likely discovering the truth about the fingers, and started making moves to rebel and break free of their influence. She banished Godfrey and his tarnished warriors so that they may grow stronger in death. Radagon left Rennala and took the kids to become second Elden Lord. See, the husband in this divorce taking the kids and leaving the dog is how you know this is a fantasy. Then Marika had these 2 kids with Radagon. Sometime afterwards, Ranni orchestrated the Night of the Black Knives. Marika went crazy, shattered the Elden Ring, plunged the world into a chaotic war that ended in a stalemate, and then finally, as an act of desperation, the 2 fingers brought back the Tarnished to break the stalemate so that Radagon could beat Marika back into submission and keep up the charade. And that's where the player character comes in. There's a lot of gods and outer gods mentioned in Elden Ring, and all of them have some level of influence, usually culminating in one of the Remembrance bosses, of which there is a total of 25, 15 in the base game and 10 in the DLC, even though there should be 11 in the DLC, because there's no reason why Baal wasn't a Remembrance boss when freaking Gaius was. What keeps all this convoluted lore from entering the realm of mythology is the fact that you do interact with all the principal characters. The mysteries of the world are only a mystery for the player. It's entirely up to you whether you figure things out on your own, figure things out by watching VaatiVidya, or if you even give a shit. Playing as an unhinged murder hobo smacking everything and everyone with a big stick is a totally valid way of approaching the story. That's what keeps this game from feeling as convoluted as Dark Souls and Bloodborne. You don't feel as disconnected from the history of the setting because you interact with so many people who saw all these events firsthand. These legendary figures are all either bosses or quest givers, and all of them have dialogue that hints at their history, their role in the world, and thanks to some legitimately strong character writing, even gives you a taste at what they're like as a person. I mean, just think of how many people love Radahn. Radahn now has 2 massive boss fights associated with him, yet without uttering a single line of dialogue, we still get a strong impression of what he's all about thanks to his design and the way other people talk about him. I think this is a great direction for fantasy stories to take, especially in a medium like video games that allow us to experience the world at our own leisure. Don't just talk about how badass or crazy the world is. Don't just show it in a cutscene. Let us experience it. Let us feel it. Elden Ring is a masterclass at making you feel like the linchpin in a complex web of mythology, and because of that, by the time you've felled the Elden Beast and all the other major bosses, you feel like you've become the greatest of legends. A legend of not Zelda, if you will. Because all of this is pretty much the opposite of how things play out in the most recent Zelda games. Heck, Link doesn't even have top billing in his own franchise, and most iterations of the hero end up dying in obscurity. It kinda goes to show that ancient legendary figures might not be famous for altruistic reasons. Everyone you speak to in the Land Between was an active participant in historic events. Meanwhile, everyone you talk to in Hyrule is a victim of similar events. While Elden Ring makes you feel like a legend, you never feel like a hero. Every plotline ends in tragedy. Even the happiest ending is relative. Yeah, you go with Ranni on her 1,000-year divine voyage, but it comes at the expense of Blythe and Iji. And all the endings come at the expense of Melina. Either she dies in the flame of ruin, or she dumps you for becoming the Lord of Frenzy. Not to mention that in order to become the new Lord, you have to vanquish all challengers, which is why you have to destroy Morgott, the Fire Giant, Malekith, Gideon, Godfrey, Ratigan, and beat the game, plus Radahn, Mohg, Mesmer, and Radahn again to finish the DLC. So yeah, in the classical sense, the recent Zelda games are a comedy, a fallen world being saved by the light, while Elden Ring is a tragedy, a golden world descending into ruin and decay. I think it's really neat how both Nintendo and FromSoft hit on some similar ideas around the same time, and in doing so released arguably the best games of the past 15 years. And I hope to see more games with these qualities coming in the not too distant future. I'm Mediocrity4, thanks for watching.